Tonight, a CBS News exclusive. The Afghan government is pressuring the United States to release a suspected terrorist arrested in the bombing last week that killed a U.S. soldier and injured an American reporter. I'm Harry Smith. Also tonight, all-out war in Southern California. The enemy is growing by leaps and bounds. A huge wildfire now threatening 12,000 homes. Football helmets go high-tech to warn student athletes and maybe save their lives. And what he did for Brown. A UPS driver makes his final delivery and sets a record.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening. Katie is off tonight. More than 800 American service people have been killed in Afghanistan since 2001. And today, the top U.S. commander there delivered his much-anticipated progress report on the war. General Stanley McChrystal said, "The situation in Afghanistan is serious, but success is achievable." We have a story tonight, though, that illustrates why that goal is so elusive. Last Friday, a roadside bomb killed 22-year-old U.S. Army Specialist Abraham Wheeler of South Carolina and left CBS News correspondent Cami McCormick seriously wounded. Now we learn the Afghan government may have links to a suspected terrorist who is being held for the bombing and, incredibly, may be trying to get him freed. David Martin reports tonight from Logar province in eastern Afghanistan.
It's what American soldiers call a security bubble. To these Afghan shopkeepers and their children, it's a chance for a normal life. In a string of villages south of Kabul, U.S. troops are providing security in return for help in hunting the Taliban. It's a small-scale model of what General Stanley McChrystal is calling for in his strategic assessment. A greater concentration of U.S. forces working closely with Afghan soldiers and police. According to Captain Paul Shepard, it began here with a massive increase of U.S. troops.
We've seen a complete 180, and we've seen that because I think we've flooded the area with soldiers. We've gone from 500 to 5,000.
But outside the bubble, this province is still a very dangerous place. U.S. troops have been here since the beginning of the year, watching down on the roads and clearing them of mines. But just 3 days ago, at almost this same spot, a roadside bomb killed Army Specialist Abraham Wheeler and seriously wounded CBS radio reporter Cami McCormick. Do you know who did it?
Yes, sir, we do. We know exactly who did it.
Lieutenant Colonel Tom Gukeisen told CBS News 3 men were arrested after a search by the Afghan Army brought in suspects with evidence on their hands.
And there were 3 individuals there that had explosives 3 times the normal limit or tolerance levels for TNT.
We watched as a team of investigators boarded a helicopter carrying the physical evidence, including fingerprints, that could convict the 3 men of murdering an American soldier and wounding a U.S. citizen. Except one of the bombers had a cell phone with a number to the Ministry of Defense in Kabul, which might explain why a letter arrived from the ministry saying they'd arrested the wrong men.
We think he was tied to the Minister of Defense, someone in that office that began to put political pressure.
The 3 are still in U.S. custody and could be put on trial. But U.S. officers say there will be neither justice nor security, no matter how many American troops, if the central government pulls strings for roadside bombing. David Martin, CBS News at Forward Operating Base, Altamont.
This was already the deadliest month of the war for U.S. forces in Afghanistan when 2 more Americans were killed today in separate explosions in the south. That brought the August toll to at least 48. Here at home, hot, dry weather is making it nearly impossible to stop 8 major wildfires burning in California. The biggest is outside Los Angeles. It's already destroyed 21 homes and another 12,000 are in danger. A state of emergency has been declared in 4 counties. Some of the smoke is drifting far to the east. There was thick smog today in Denver, some 900 miles away. Ground zero is the Angeles National Forest in Southern California. That's where Sandra Hughes is tonight.
The fire outside of Los Angeles is a monster that refuses to be tamed, doubling in size overnight. 164 square miles have now burned.
We've not been able to get offensive with the fire just because it has been so persnickety and angry right now.
Tragically, the blaze has now claimed the lives of 2 firefighters, 47-year-old Tedman Hall, a captain with LA County Fire, and 35-year-old Arnaldo Quinones, also with LA Fire. On Sunday, they drove their truck off a treacherous road while fleeing advancing flames.
Please, prayers for the family of our 2 brothers that we lost.
But the firefight had to go on, and more than 2,500 firefighters are battling the blaze. With smoky skies grounding water-dropping aircraft, boots on the ground were the only defense against a 20-mile wall of flames that has destroyed at least 21 homes.
This thing was unreal. I mean, it was a life-changing experience, I think.
Acton resident Hayden Rosenauer got a first-hand look. He ignored official pleas to evacuate and rode out the fire in his stone house.
There was probably around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and the firestorm was like just a tornado of flames and embers.
Others weren't so lucky. In the Angeles National Forest, 3 adults who didn't evacuate were critically burned. And several miles to the west, flames have trapped 5 holdouts who ignored evacuation orders 2 days ago. And now it's too dangerous for crews to rescue them. What makes this fire so unusual is it's being driven by dry terrain, not extremely strong winds. Some brush-choked canyons haven't burned in more than 50 years, providing miles of kindling ready to explode. But now the fire has grown so intense it's producing its own weather system. As seen in this time-lapsed video, intense heat creating a towering smoke cloud that eventually collapses onto itself. A fire near Sacramento leveled 60 structures, including an entire cul-de-sac. Now, witnesses say fire just exploded down this canyon, destroying 18 cabins and homes. On this property, what you can see is just a burned out car and some of the walls remaining in this home. You can see right here melted aluminum. This is part of the rack on top of the car. And now what officials are saying is they do not expect containment of this fire to come anywhere before the middle of September. Harry?
Sandra Hughes in Southern California with us tonight. Thanks. Also in California, police returned today to the compound where they say J.C. Dugard, who now 29 years old, was held since she was kidnapped at the age of 11. And as investigators search for evidence, John Blackstone has more about her life in captivity.
Although J.C. Dugard and her mother remain in seclusion, neighbors are putting up pink ribbons of welcome on her mother's street in Riverside, California. In Antioch today, it seemed an understatement when authorities posted signs declaring unsafe the house where J.C. was held captive for 18 years and where she gave birth to 2 daughters, fathered, police believe, by her kidnapper, Philip Garrido. Remarkably, the 2 girls, now 11 and 15, show up in a photograph taken a few weeks ago at a birthday party for Siobhan Molino's daughter.
They did attend, and they seemed like regular, normal children, and they came and had a good time.
Garrido was with the girls, and they didn't stay long.
He took them home because he said, they're not used to this type of surroundings.
The surroundings they were used to are shown in the first photos from inside the secret backyard compound. Trash is piled high around a tumble-down tent. Inside, clothing, mattresses, old furniture, and toys sit in disarray. It was all hidden from the house by a wooden fence lined with junk. California corrections officials are defending the parole officer who regularly visited the property, yet failed to discover the concealed backyard.
They see a fence that appears to end the property. Would you go then, hop the fence? Or would you go pick up tarps or try to crawl over a car?
Neighbors, though, are not satisfied.
That address is a sex offender's address and a person on parole. So they should have some kind of red flag of that.
But in Antioch, a hard-pressed industrial town, there are red flags almost everywhere. A map posted on the Megan's Law website shows Antioch has 122 registered sex offenders, a number many here believe authorities should have been able to keep an eye on. Investigators have now largely dismantled the backyard compound. One of the things they're looking for is evidence linking Garrido to other missing and murdered women. Harry?
John Blackstone in Antioch tonight. Thanks. Now to the war of words between the Obama administration and former Vice President Dick Cheney. It's all about whether CIA officers should be prosecuted over the harsh interrogation of terror suspects. And as Bob Orr reports, the war is escalating.
In a double-barreled offensive, former Vice President Dick Cheney defended the Bush administration's terrorist interrogation program and condemned Attorney General Eric Holder's appointment of a prosecutor as a political hit job on the CIA.
I think it's an outrageous political act that will do great damage long-term to our capacity to be able to have people take on difficult jobs, make difficult decisions without having to worry about what the next administration is going to say back.
The White House today fired back, saying Cheney has his facts wrong.
I'm not entirely sure that Dick Cheney's predictions on foreign policy have borne a whole lot of fruit over the last 8 years.
The new investigation will determine if CIA personnel broke the law by threatening accused coal bomber Abed al-Nashiri with a power drill, or by threatening to kill the children of 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. The Bush Justice Department looked at a dozen such incidents and declined to prosecute. Cheney insists no crimes were committed and says enhanced interrogations like waterboarding worked. Recently released CIA documents, while not conclusive, suggest some support. Since the use of the waterboard, the CIA Inspector General wrote, Abu Zubaydah has appeared to be cooperative. And following enhanced interrogation, al-Nashiri provided information about his most current operational planning.
The enhanced interrogation techniques were absolutely essential in saving thousands of American lives, in preventing further attacks against the United States, and giving us the intelligence we needed to go find al-Qaeda, to find their camps, to find out how they were being financed.
Lost in the political ruckus is the central question: can anybody connected to the harsh interrogation program really be successfully prosecuted? Career prosecutors who have studied the evidence say they don't think so. Harry?
Bob Orr in Washington tonight. Thanks. Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, 4 years after Katrina, why are thousands of families still living in trailers? CBS News investigates. There is a monster storm in the Pacific bearing down on Mexico's Baja Peninsula. Hurricane Jimena is a Category 4. It's expected to turn north, and by this time tomorrow, the resorts in Los Cabos could be feeling the full brunt of it. It has been 4 years now since Hurricanes Katrina and Rita hit the Gulf Coast, and hard as it is to believe, thousands are still living in trailers. Chief Investigative Correspondent Armand Katayan has long been following their struggles and tonight returns to the Gulf Coast.
Hard times are hardly new in Pass Christian, Mississippi. But 4 years after Hurricane Katrina tore this area apart,
the house is floating away.
Rita Marie Northrup still calls this FEMA trailer home, one of 2,100 Gulf Coast families suffering the very same fate.
I gave up on FEMA. You know, I could have appealed. I gave up.
At the height of the recovery, 143,000 families in Louisiana and Mississippi found refuge from the storm in these trailers. Now, 2 years after FEMA began moving people out of the trailers, contaminated with the toxic chemical formaldehyde, caseworkers tell CBS News the thousands left in the trailers aren't trying to beat the system. They are victims of a system that's proved incapable of helping them get out. Just ask Kendall Deschamps.
This is home.
What's it like to spend 4 years in that box?
It's miserable. Bottom line is miserable.
A disabled state highway worker, Deschamps collects just $1,368 a month in benefits. Not enough, he says, to afford the sheetrock and new hot water heater he needs for the permit allowing him to move back into his 4-bedroom home, which stands just a few tantalizing feet away.
Kendall, top to bottom, how much and how long?
Probably a couple thousand in a day's time.
Deschamps says he has called FEMA countless times for assistance.
So this lady here, Miss Stephanie, give me Miss Darlene.
Only to get an endless game of bureaucratic runaround that has beaten this man down.
They give me the same answers. You need to call this person. Now I call this person, they tell me I need to talk to this person.
You're a good girl.
Candy Moran, a state social worker, says all she needs is a bit more time to fix her home.
But what do you do, you know?
FEMA's answer, a threat of eviction or temporary housing in the next county.
My grandparents gave us this property. So, you know, when FEMA approaches me and says, Candy, we can put you in a rental, I can't leave my home.
Today, these travel trailers behind me stand as a symbol of a recovery gone wrong. A hurricane of cover-up, chaos, and incompetence. A system that remains, in the words of one FEMA worker on the ground here in Mississippi, one big, disgusting mess. We wanted to ask FEMA about what's being done for folks like this, but they told us to call another federal agency, Housing and Urban Development, saying as of June, HUD had taken over long-term housing of disaster victims.
We're working with the states to remove all the bureaucratic red tape to make sure that those final families can be serviced by these programs as well.
Yet so many of those final families say the last thing they want is another program.
I got the insulation sitting there to go on that wall.
But rather someone to actually listen, to provide the help they really need.
And this is the sink and of course the toilet that goes in that bathroom.
To close these doors once and for all. Armin Katayan, CBS News, Gulfport, Mississippi.
Coming up next, letting cooler heads prevail on the football field. A high-tech helmet that warns players when it's dangerously hot. In Louisville, a former high school football coach went on trial today in the death of one of his players. Prosecutors say Jason Stinson withheld water from players during a practice in 94-degree heat. 15-year-old Max Gilpin collapsed from heat exhaustion and died 3 days later. For coaches trying to strike a balance between pushing young athletes to succeed and pushing them too far, Mark Strassman tells us about a new device that could warn them when it's too hot to play.
On the Blessed Trinity Titans, coaches want players to feel the heat. This is Georgia. Temperatures still spike in the 90s.
They got 20 minutes here, you take a break.
So mandatory water breaks and cool down time.
Every player in the field's wearing 15 to 20 pounds of equipment, which only gets heavier as the day goes on, and the padding absorbs sweat.
On a day like this, I've had kids heat up within 15, 20 minutes.
Just since 1995, 40 football players, 30 of them high school kids, have died of heat stroke. So head trainer Preston Bazemore is field testing a new wireless device. A sensor inside every helmet gauges the temperature of each player's forehead.
What's the threshold temperature? On here, 102.5 is where it's going to send me an alert.
A body temperature of 103 degrees often means heat exhaustion. 105 or higher, held longer than 30 minutes, can become fatal heat stroke, the condition that killed Max Gilpin. And the boy's father blames the head coach, now on trial.
They're still kids, and they're trying so hard that they will literally die for you if not watched.
This season, 4 major college programs are also using the heat sensors in helmets. The projected cost, roughly $100 a player. It's a new potential safeguard against football's traditional culture, play through pain.
If I'm able to see and if I'm able to breathe, I'm going to play.
Players never want to come out, but sometimes they have to. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Roswell, Georgia.
And coming up next, the 2 million mile man. Finally tonight, Marty Peters doesn't remember what it was he delivered the first time he drove a truck for UPS. But the entire company can tell you what he delivered the last time. As Dean Reynolds tells us, it was a record.
As the hours wound down on Marty Peters' last day at work, he did what he's always done, his job. Year after year, day after day, he's set a record that will be hard to top. Because at the age of 87, Marty has been on the job for 63 years. Decades of driving, close to 2 million miles, hoisting innumerable packages, and keeping track of where everything went.
We were calculating that you've worked for UPS something like 15,000 days.
It's been 15,000 good days too, I'll tell you.
Until recently, Marty never really thought much about calling it quits. insisting the job kept him happy and healthy.
Anybody that keeps working, you're rolling with the times and your health is rolling with you.
Since 1946, he's taken just 5 sick days.
My doctor, last time I went to him, he said, you know, Marty, you're 1 in a million.
When Marty went to work for UPS 63 years ago, the average price of a home was around $5,000. A car cost $1,000, and Marty was making 95 cents an hour. Today, Marty lives comfortably in suburban Detroit. He and his wife, Christine, have been married 58 years, but a life of leisure is apparently not in their plans.
Maybe I'll have to go to work. Then he can stay home and keep house.
On Friday, Marty was up as usual well before dawn, punching in for one last time and ending the day with a big farewell.
Marty!
Marty was a force of nature and a fact of life here. It will be hard to let him go.
Come visit us once in a while, okay?
Dean Reynolds, CBS News, Detroit.
That's the CBS Evening News. For Katie Couric, I'm Harry Smith. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you in the morning on The Early Show. Good night.